The thing that I'm really intrigued by is like, does the business model of Silicon Valley actually make sense, right? So, I have my iPhone right here. If you think about like what an iPhone is, it really is a thing that gets you to stare at it as much as possible so that it can take your data and then sell it back to you in the form of targeted advertising. There's a pretty good argument that this Silicon Valley business model, which distracts a lot of attention and effectively is built upon the theft of data, should be completely outlawed, right? And make it illegal to sort of collect people's data without a whole host of additional protections. I think that would blow up the model of Silicon Valley. I think maybe that's too radical. But if I'm actually laying my cards,
hey, as a guy that just started a tech company that's doing subscription and doesn't sell data, keep it going, keep it going. So where do you fit into that? Like in terms of your beliefs at this point? Are they all traditionally conservative? I mean, I get what you're saying. You could maybe be thought of as one of those, 15-year ago blue dog Democrat types. But like, what would say your broad sort of idea set look like?
Yeah, I mean, there are some traditionally conservative ideas that I'm very comfortable with. So I'm very pro-life. I've always been pro-life. I've always cared a lot about that issue because I think, when abortion becomes widespread in society, what it effectively does is send a message to families that their babies are inconveniences instead of, real like blessings for us to support. So on some issues, I'm very traditionally conservative, but like one issue, for example, where I depart pretty strongly from the traditional Republican line is I think a lot of folks in the Republican Party, they see what's going on with Google, Apple, Facebook, with big tech writ large, and they say, well, we don't like what they're doing. We don't like the fact that they censor conservatives, but they're private companies, and so we can't actually do anything with them. And my response to that is, well, first of all, they're not actually private companies. They benefit from a ton of special government privileges, but also they're just too powerful. Like however they got there, they're way too powerful and they're way too big at this point. So I'm willing to go, with Ken Buck and with Josh Hawley and with others and say, look, we've got to actually rein in the power of these companies, because if they control what you're allowed to say in America, we don't have a First Amendment anymore. If we don't have a First Amendment, we don't have a real country.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've discussed this with Tucker on his show many times, and years, like 2 or 3 years ago, I was still like, no regulation, don't touch anything, the libertarian side of me. And I actually have come more towards what you just laid out there, which is what Josh Hawley's been laying out. But what do you think that actually looks like? Because if the founders could have never imagined something more powerful than the government, which is what we've got, I mean, do you want to send government bureaucrats to look at the Google algorithm as if they could do it? Or is it breaking these companies up? I mean, I know you like the competition side, and we'll talk about Rumble in just a little bit, but like, what does it actually look like that you would want done to big tech?
Yeah. So bracketing the things you can still do in the private sector, which I think is important. I think that there are ranges of options from less radical to more radical, right? So I think a slightly less radical option is you just make, in the same way that like you can't censor somebody because they're black or because they're white. You used to not be able to do that, of course, the last couple of years.
Yeah. Give it a couple more months.
You can't, for example, turn off an electric utility can't turn off somebody's power because they don't, like the sex or the gender or the race of the people who need the power. I think one thing you could do is just add political viewpoint to that protected class. Say if you're a conservative and you're censored on Facebook, you basically have a right to file a lawsuit in the same way that if you're censored because you're black, you have a right to file a lawsuit. That's sort of option one. I think a little bit more radical is the antitrust option, effectively breaking up these companies, making it impossible for them to sort of control the discourse because you have more competition among the platforms that are out there. I'm basically supportive of that, though I think that you have to do it the right way, or effectively these sort of companies just reform as natural monopolies. The thing that I'm really intrigued by is like, does the business model of Silicon Valley actually make sense, right? So, I have my iPhone right here. If you think about like what an iPhone is, it really is a thing that gets you to stare at it as much as possible so that it can take your data and then sell it back to you in the form of targeted advertising. There's a pretty good argument that this Silicon Valley business model, which distracts a lot of attention and effectively is built upon the theft of data, should be completely outlawed, right? And make it illegal to sort of collect people's data without a whole host of additional protections. I think that would blow up the model of Silicon Valley. I think maybe that's too radical. But if I'm actually laying my cards,
hey, as a guy that just started a tech company that's doing subscription and doesn't sell data, keep it going, keep it going.
But I have to say that honestly, I would be supportive of that. If you basically said you can no longer effectively steal people's data, I think that would be really good for our country, and I actually think it would be good for the tech sector, because like the tech sector, whether it's in digital technology or pharmaceuticals or energy and transportation, like it's become a little bit like these devices, I think, have become a little parasitic on capital, on high quality talent. And there's this weird way where our entire economy, like Silicon Valley has worked pretty well. If you look at the S&P 500, Silicon Valley has great returns in their companies, but like the entire rest of the country and the entire rest of the economy has been relatively stagnant. That's a big problem. That's not just a censorship problem. That's a broader economic problem. But I think we have to be worried about that problem too. So I'm pretty radical on this. In other words, go after their special privileges, break them up, maybe even illegalize the entire business model, because I care about having a real economy and a real country again.
At some level, though, do you think it's just kind of too late? Like, we had Trump for 4 years, we had all the hearings, we all saw Zuckerberg and Jack from Twitter and the rest of them trot out there and basically make up a lot of nonsense half the time under oath.
Right.
And we didn't do anything then. So why would the Biden administration, that obviously is no fan of some of the ideas you're putting out there, why would they be the ones to do this?
Well, I don't think they're going to be the ones to do this. I mean, I definitely think it's going to be a combination of leverage from Republican senators, and hopefully I'm one in the not too distant future. It's also going to require a new Republican administration. I think, again, all this stuff is going to happen on the right because the left is way too in the pocket of the big tech industry. All that said, I try to take a very long view in this. You may know this guy, Nigel Farage. He's sort of the leader of the UK.
I've gotten drunk with him.
Okay, well, he's a good guy to have a beer with. One of the things that I've taken just from getting to know Nigel a little bit is like the Brexit thing took 25 years of institution building, of convincing voters, of convincing media, a ton of institutional biases against the Brexit movement. Electorally, there were some weird issues. Of course, the media hated Nigel Farage and thought he was a terrible person. So I tend to think about this in a longer term way, that like the goal here isn't to fix this tomorrow. Yes, I wish that more could have happened over the last 4 years in actually addressing the tech problem. But I think if we take that attitude, it can become self-defeating. And what we have to do in this moment is actually gear ourselves up for a fight, and a long-term fight. And if we do that, I actually think the people are with us. I think that we're on the right side of this issue, and we'll eventually win. It just may take some work and a lot of time.
Yeah. Do you think we just need a sort of separation from all of the institutions that the left has built that we're now watching crumble? I mean, do we need to just build new institutions, new technological answers and solutions, just really like a complete parallel economy?
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably do. We need to build parallel businesses, of course, because the businesses have gone fully in the tank for the left. Like the biggest multinational corporations are now effectively enterprises of the left. I also think we have to build alternative educational institutions. One of the things the left has been incredibly effective at is monopolizing education in this country, right? They've basically created a system whereby if you don't get a 4-year college degree, it's very hard to even apply for most middle-class jobs, right? Even if they don't really require a college degree, they'll put it right on the application, like, 4-year degree required. And so what this has done is forced a lot of people who just want to have a middle-class life into the university system. They've acquired a lot of debt. They've, of course, acquired a lot of indoctrination along the way. Like, the left is in some ways like, in this evil Machiavellian sense, sort of genius, because they've made the most left-leaning institutions the gatekeeper of a good life in this society. Conservatives have got to find an alternative to this, because if we keep on forcing all of our kids to go to 4-year colleges, we shouldn't be surprised that we keep on losing the culture war.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.